Next up, in our third ZIO Streams video, what I want to do is show how to read user input from the command line and process it as a stream. And the reason I'm doing that is because this is potentially infinite data. This is a stream that could run forever, where the previous streams I showed in the first two videos were finite streams. We knew that we were working with a finite list of string values. In this example, we're working with a potentially infinite stream, and when we do that, we may want to work with it differently. So that's what we're going to do here. To look at the code real quick, our dependencies are the same as they were before. The imports are the same as before. Again, I use my console print function because I just want to get rid of those IO exception values. And this part here shows how to run this example. And then as usual, we have a ZIO application. So we have object some name extend ZIO app default. And what I'm doing here is creating a stream program. So before we look at the type here, let's look and see what's going on here. So I need to expand that, don't I? So I start with ZStream, and now I'm using a different constructor over here. As I mentioned in a previous video, there are a whole bunch of different ways to create ZIO streams. And you can come and take a look at this page right here to see all these different constructors that are listed over here. But what we're doing in this case is saying, I want to start with ZIO stream, and I want to use repeat ZIO. And you can see from the description here, repeat ZIO creates a stream from an effect, producing a value of type A which repeats forever. So what I'm doing here is saying I want to use console.readline and create a stream that potentially goes on forever by getting console input from the user. And now this is our source of input. So then in the same area here, I'm actually doing the transformations. As I showed in the previous video, sometimes you'll have a source of input as a stream, and then you'll create a second stream where you do the transformations. And in fact, you might even create a third and a fourth stream with different transformations. But in this case, it's a relatively simple example. So we're getting the stream data in this line. Then we start working on our transformations. This one's not a transformation. This one says keep processing the data as long as it's not empty. You could also use take until it is empty, but I chose to go this way. The next thing I do is a transformation. So I say map whatever is given to me, convert that to an uppercase string. And then I tap that and print that information like I did before. And one thing I'm not doing there, I noticed those IO exceptions over there. And this is one source of IO exceptions in our code right there. So let's get rid of that one right there. So again, we're just tapping the stream to see what's in it and printing that information out. And this is another part that's new in this example, is calling run drain here at the end. And if you look at the documentation, I think it'll say something like drain the stream or process all elements. Let's see if that comes up here. So this says run the stream only for its effects, and then the emitted elements are discarded. That is an important thing to know about run drain, is that all the elements are discarded at the end. There are other run methods you could call, like run collect to collect all the values, and some others. The unique thing about run drain is that the elements are discarded, so you don't have to worry about it accumulating memory like you would have to do with run collect, where you're collecting the elements. I added this other description here because I thought it would be helpful. So run drain consumes all the stream elements. So the stream is starting here. It's going through these transformations, and then it's coming out over here. So you can think of the elements as basically going down the drain. It consumes all the stream elements, discards all the values, doesn't collect them or return them, and returns a ZIO effect that completes when the entire stream is processed. So this effect does not complete until the entire stream is processed. That's a very important point to know, and this is one way that you work with a potentially infinite stream like this. Another important note is that without a terminal operator like run drain, the stream actually wouldn't execute. Nothing would happen. And I found an interesting note, and I'm sorry, I can't remember where I found it, but it says run drain is actually what turns on the water and lets everything flow through the pipeline that you've defined. So if you didn't have run drain right here, nothing would actually happen, except of course you'd have an error there. So we'll put that back in. And again, run drain is what turns on the water and starts the stream running. And as I mentioned briefly, there are other run methods that you can call. I believe we'll take a look at these in future videos, so I won't really get into those right now. So if I scoot back up here, we have stream program, and I don't like that IO exception. So what we could do here, of course, is call or die. And that allows us to change this to a nothing. And I hate to keep harping on this, but I call or die because if you can't read from your own console, something's really wrong with your computer. So we call or die, and that allows us to change the IO exception that was here to a nothing. So we're saying right here in the error channel, this can't fail unless something is really, really wrong with your computer. That's kind of what or die does for us. So we have or die here, and then we have or die in this console print function that I have created right here. And we have that at the end of every print line. So coming back over here, that allows us to change that to nothing. Then this can go back to being nothing. And as I mentioned in a previous video, I just want to get rid of all those IO exceptions because they're kind of distracting to the mind. And again, the only way you can get an IO exception in this application is if something's really wrong with your computer because we're just reading from the console and writing to the console. One other thing I want to mention, I have a note down here at the bottom that I'm using repeat ZIO console.readline there instead of using system.in. So you can write the same program using system.in to read from the console. And if we do that, that would be working with an input stream. So you can see here is another possible constructor. We have zstream from input stream. And this one shows how to read from a file input stream. But in our example, I think I might do it in the next video. I use system.in as an input stream to do the exact same thing here. So I'm just trying to show different ways of doing that, and that's what this note is about, or was supposed to be about. Okay, so given all that information, let's scoot this over here, and that's a little bit too wide. So now you can see the code here. This is command I need to run. So let's go ahead and run this application. All right, so we see it says enter text, empty line to quit. That's the message that we're getting right here. So we put something like A in there. How about AAA? We do foo, we do bar, and so on. So you can just keep typing here. And what's going on is repeat ZIO is reading the input from the console. Then we're saying as long as it's not empty, go ahead and map it to uppercase. Then I use tap right here to produce the log information, which is that uppercase string right there. So I type in bar, and then the tap gives us the uppercase bar in that example there. And then run drain is basically just pulling this stream towards us. It's pulling the data in. So as long as we keep typing over here, we'll keep getting uppercase values. And then the only thing I'll do here is hit the enter key, and that will give us a blank line or an empty line. And then you see program completed. And that happens because takewhile keeps taking values as long as they're not empty. But as soon as I put in that empty value, or just the carriage return right there, that became an empty value right there, and that terminated the stream. And then we see the program completed message right down there at the bottom. So again, as a summary, the purpose of this ZIO stream video was to show how to read user input from the command line, process it as a stream, and the real key right here is that we're working with potentially infinite data. And because of that, that's why I use repeat ZIO right here. As I mentioned in another video, I'll be using system.in and I'll be using from input stream to accomplish pretty much the same thing right there, working with a potentially infinite stream. And then what I do in this application is I say, I have that potentially infinite stream right here. Then I'll use take while and map and tap and run drain as I previously described. And also as I previously described, run drain is a real key to a recipe like this. As I note here, it basically starts the stream, it turns on the water and starts pulling things down to the drain. And then run drain in particular consumes all the stream elements and discards all the values. It does not collect or return them, and returns a ZIO effect that completes when the entire stream is processed. And as I mentioned, there are other run methods like run collect, run count, run fold, etc. And I think we'll be looking at some of these in future videos, especially run collect, I believe. So if you wanted to see how to create a potentially infinite stream and work with it, I hope this example has been helpful.